And today we have an individual that is doing huge things for the community, making sure that people are staying fed, staying healthy, inspiring people to step into this movement and make a difference. And of course, we have Gwena Hunter on the show, and she is the first Black woman to run a food. I'm going to do that again.
Okay.
Edit point, editor. And she is the first Black woman to run, I guess, start a vegan food bank that is brick and mortar. And actually, the first in LA, but also the first Black woman in the entire country to do that as well. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. And you said it perfectly.
And we have, for those of you who are just listening for the first time, thank you so much. And make sure you visit SoFlowVegans.com for the show notes so you can link to all of the amazing stuff that Gwenna is doing. And if you've already listened to this or to the show in the past, you know our first question is the vegan origin story, because we're the people that I bring onto this show are doing huge things, and I like to think of them as sort of superheroes for humanity. And every superhero has their origin story, so we're putting our little twist on that. So
I love
Gwenna,
it.
what is your vegan origin story?
That's the best way I've ever been asked. Like I feel powerful right now. So, well, I'm always powerful, but I feel extra powerful right now. So my origin story, I started off in 2008, um, doing vegetarianism after trying a Daniel's fast with a friend at the time. And I had already, since I was 23, I stopped eating cows and pigs because my body would not process cows anymore. Like I could not digest them. And when I would try to eat steak, corned beef, anything like that, my body would react violently. I would have to go to the emergency room. They thought I had an ulcer. Then they thought I had gallstones. And I ended up diagnosing myself. I'm like, this only happens every time I eat a cow. And so I had also decided to stop eating pigs, but none of it had anything to do with compassion. It was just to make me feel better. And then some things I had heard about pigs. And so I was like, okay, I'm just not going to eat those two animals anymore. But again, nothing to do with compassion. So anyway, forward to 2008, went vegetarian. I felt better. Kept getting little hints that I now see as little hints about taking it all the way, but it just wasn't clicking. And then in February of 2016, my journey like fast forwarded and really began. I had a dream,
Mhm.
and in the dream, I was flying in the sky, and I saw this really beautiful cow in a green pasture. And when I looked down at her, she looked up at me, and we had like this type of energy between our eyes, and we merged and became one, and I possessed the cow's consciousness like
Mhm.
completely. Her life flashed before me. I like experienced her as a being, giving birth, having children, community, feelings, emotions. Just I felt her entire existence as you feel your existence. So when I woke up from the dream, I was so emotional because I was like, oh my God, cows love, and we eat them, and they have this level of consciousness. And I was just like crying, and I was just like, oh my God. And even though I'm a huge believer in dreams, phenomena, supernatural, all of that, I still have a skeptic side. So I'm
Mm.
like, okay, maybe did I eat something weird last night? Like, could this really be true? And as I'm laying in the bed, wide awake, fully conscious, I feel this physical warm sensation over my chest. And I looked and I didn't see anything. And I put my hand there. And when I touched it, I was paralyzed with peace. But peace is it's not even the right language. It's just the closest word I can grab, but it doesn't even begin to describe the feeling. It was warm, it was loving, it was unconditional, it was real, and it was still, and it just felt so good. You could just, I could have just like checked out of Earth and stayed there. Like it felt that good that I didn't want to be connected to nothing on this particular planet. And so it probably lasted a few seconds. And so that was my confirmation that what I experienced was real. Coincidentally, within a few days later, I ended up coming across this 5-minute video by Aaron Janis called Darius Effing Scary. And that video shows how we treat animals, like how we treat cows and how we get our milk for real. And so I'm watching this and I'm like, I never seen anything like it in my life. And I'm like, this is what we do to her breast. This is what we do to her children. This is what we do. We take her son and we make him veal. Her daughter has a life of slavery like her. Like I saw slavery, rape, murder, torture. It wasn't a cow. It was, to me, it was a woman. And I was just like, I will never participate in this because I thought being vegan was extreme. Yeah. I didn't know what I know now. I just thought, crazy vegans throw blood on people wearing fur coats. They don't drink dairy. I just thought, the vegan community was like, completely nuts. And so, yeah, when I had that experience and I saw the video, I just felt like I need to tell everybody. If I tell everybody, they'll go vegan. But we know that that's not how it works.
And so one of the things I love about this segment is that everybody has a different story, even though there may be some similarities. Like the person I just had, I think, maybe Sherry Johnson, she was on the show earlier, and she had mentioned she had went on a fast that I think it might have been a Daniel's fast,
okay.
but that's, but even though there's similarities, the path is different.
Yes.
And I feel like it's important for people to hear that there's not one way to be vegan. And you all have our different motivations for it. Like I came into it from a health perspective, but your experience is unique to your journey. And I'm glad that you shared it. And I remember we met in LA at Beverly, Nick's on Beverly's.
Yes.
And you shared that story and it stuck with me as, even until today, before you even told it, because just the way it happened, it's different than what you might hear most people say. It's like, oh, I went because I had a family member that was sick or something like that. So let's take the audience into what happened after you had that epiphany and you went through that altering experience. What was the next part of your journey?
So the next part of my journey, after being horrified even further from seeing the video, because it's one thing to know that they're conscious, then I had to make the connection to not only are they conscious, they're experiencing this torture. They're experiencing, the loss of autonomy of their body. They're like, I saw the exact same blueprint for slavery on humans, on Black people, that I saw on this cow. I'm like, this is the same exact thing. And then we're told they don't think, they don't feel, they're put here for us, like the same exact copy and paste, and we buy it. So my next part of the journey was to tell everybody and get them to go vegan. Because, if I just tell them, they'll do it.
Of course.
And like, duh. So, I'm on Facebook and I'm posting these slaughter videos and I'm like, this must stop. I'm like one of them for about 3 or 4 months because I'm learning so much. I'm learning that the meat and dairy industry, fund public schools. I'm seeing all these, what is the word? This mafia type situation going on the planet. And I'm just like, mine keeps getting blown. The more I dig, the more I research, the more I watch, the more I see, the more I read, the more I'm like, what? And as liberating as it was, it also pisses you off. So you have to decide which one you're going to be in and how often. Initially, the first few months, I was in the angry part because I was just resentful that I had learned this information, that I had been lied to. What else had I been lied to? why are we doing this? Who's in control of this message? Who's putting this propaganda out? Who's telling us to eat animals? Who's like, I'm just like, I need answers. So I ended up deciding, because I had started volunteering, I started doing things to see where I fit, because I knew that my destiny was in the animal rights movement. Like, I knew this is where I was supposed to be. And so I went to protest and potlucks and like, I did all these things just to see what felt good to me. And I realized it was something that I wasn't doing. I'm like, you know what? Black people need to taste this vegan food. If they taste it, it's a game changer. And I'm like, I want to help do that. I'm like, I want to feed Black people vegan food without them paying for it. And so I put that out there in my mind, like, this is what I want to do. And I'm like, I need to be paid to be vegan. Like, somebody needs to hire me and I need to pay to be vegan. And manifesting a job with Vegan Outreach. And part of my job was exactly that, going into communities of color, doing a brief presentation. And in exchange for them listening to the presentation, we feed them delicious vegan food. And so I did that in different aspects for several years until the pandemic hit. And then when the pandemic hit, we pivoted and decided to do food outreach programs to communities of color. So I was in charge of LA. And so I reached out to Black Lives Matter. Shout out Melina Abdullah, who said yes. And Black Lives Matter, Black Women for Wellness we worked with, Black Women Farmers of LA, the LGBT Center off of MLK, Crass African Spiritual Unity Center. So we work with all these different organizations to provide fresh produce and hot meals, hot vegan meals. So people could try the meals and also take home a ton of vegan groceries. So I did that for about a year and a half, and I was like burnt out. And it wasn't anybody's fault. Like, I kept I had a large budget, so I wanted to feed everybody. I'm like, I'm not saying no. If I can afford it, I'm doing it. So I had this budget, so I'm just like hitting the streets. And by the end of last year, I was like, I'm tired. I'm like, I can't do this all the time. And so I decided, after having done this work for a while, I'm like, I can manage myself. And so I decided to create a food bank so people come to me. I don't have people. And I ended up running into a gentleman that has a food bank, Sonny Kang. And then we started talking. I mean, it was all such synchronicity, divine synchronicity. Like, I couldn't have created a better situation if I took a year to plan it out. Like, the way it happened was just so divine and wonderful. And so, yeah, the food bank started in May, and it's been going strong ever since.
And that's a undertaking I think that most people wouldn't even consider, but it has such a huge impact. So you touched on it a little bit, but what was that process like to put together the food bank? I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of learning that went along with it. Like, what was that process like?
So I'm glad you asked. So initially I had the thought kind of came to me like towards the end of last year. And I'm like, there's no feed. And I kept looking up, I'm like, there are no vegan food banks. There are people that, do produce outreach and things like that, but there are no food banks where someone who is, struggling a little bit and needs a little bit more to feed the family, and they're vegan or they want more fresh produce, there's no place for them to go. And so I started looking up community centers and churches and, telling friends, and they're like, well, Keisha's cousin's nephew's brother has the hookup on this. And it was just like too much. And I'm like, I can't afford to like experiment with this to the point of where I'd have to start over. I'm like, this needs to hit the first time. And so I just said, universe, I need this to fall in my lap. I'm overthinking it. I'm thinking too hard. Too many names and numbers and emails in my head. I said, I need this to be divine, and I need to fall in my lap. And I deserve for this to fall into my lap in a really beautiful way. So I ended up probably maybe about a month or so later having lunch with this pastor who's doing a vegan program at a college, and wanted to exchange some information. And we're talking, and he's like, "Yeah, I have a food bank." And I said, "Oh, that's great." I said, "I'm trying to start a food bank, but an all vegan one." And he said, and I had just finished sharing my dream with him. This is a pastor. I just told him my dream, and he was just like, "Wow, that makes sense. I get it." So we already were connecting. And he said, "Instead of you starting from scratch, because it's a lot," he said, "why don't you just take over part of my food bank and take a week or whatever, and it's completely yours to do the food bank." And because I was going to have to purchase, get a place that had freezers, or purchase freezers, get trucks, refrigerators, staff. And I'm like, I'm running out of money already. And he had all of it. He was like, "I have the freezers, I have the refrigerator, I have a team here." So I've been learning everything from them. Like, it's been such an amazing journey and experience. It lets me know I'm on the right path, and this is what is necessary, because every time there's some type of need, it gets put right there, like, "Here, there you go." And I'm like, "All right, thank you."
And hold on. And what so let's go into the food bank for a little bit. What could someone expect? Like, if they maybe have never been to a food bank or never seen it in action, can you like paint a picture of what happens there?
Yes. So Wednesdays, on the week of the vegan food bank, that is the day where produce gets dropped off from Food Forward, who donates a lot of produce. And then I also have someone that I purchased from, and he drops it off on Wednesdays. So you have these big pallets of produce and products that are dropped off into the warehouse. And then you have a team of volunteers that show up. And we go through these boxes, one vegetable at a time, and we start sorting, tossing away anything that was donated that doesn't look good, packaging everything in like little baggies, so that the day of the food bank, it just goes, you just drop it in their bag. So there's packing and sorting, going through items. There's also a week prior, there's an ordering system that food banks have, so that they can order free surplus items like lentils, rice, beans, peanut butter, snacks, cleaning products, all types of different things that we usually supplement the bags with, in addition to the produce and the vegan meat products. There's the thing I've been learning a lot is learning how to coordinate donations and what to accept and what not to accept. I just had a fiasco on Friday where a third party, was managing a donation on my behalf. They're like, "Oh, wants to give you 6 cases of vegan meat. You got to pick it up from the warehouse." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Well, that's a small amount to pick up from a warehouse, because I've been doing this since May." But I'm like, and he's like, "No, this is what it is. It's fine." So I'm like, "Okay, I'll back off." He's being generous. I don't want to make him think that I don't trust what he's doing. And so 16 cases, each case is probably like about that thick and that wide. So I had a third party go to pick it up, and he gets there and he's like, "Yeah, donating 16 cases, they're donating 16 pallet, which is about
Whoa.
18,000 cases." I was like, "First of all, we don't even have that kind of space." Second, I knew something was wrong with this situation. So, it was a huge emergency. I had to contact my third party, and my third party had to contact his person, and she had to call the warehouse. And instead of the guy bringing 16 cases, he brings back an entire pallet, which was still a lot, because I've been getting lately a lot of donations of vegan meat products. So he brings back a pallet. We didn't have the space, so I had to contact Vegan Street Fair. And I'm like, "Can you call your people to see if they can come and take some stuff? Because this is like just crazy right now." So yeah, anything goes. You got to be ready, like waiting, for that call for a donation, and wait for something to go wrong. And it's just, but I asked for all of this. You
Mm.
know, I wanted the abundance and I wanted the experience. And so, you know, next year, this time, I'll be such a professional.
And one of the things I noticed as you're telling your story, even from the vegan origin story, is you've mentioned like manifesting and you calling things into your life and things of that nature. And you know, this is a topic that I don't really talk a lot about in the
Mhm.
podcast, but um, how has that, you know, sort of mind shift for you created abundance or created shifts in your life? You know, like for people who don't, you know, think along those terms, like how has that benefited you over the years?
Yeah, well, just, you know, for me, having the awareness that this isn't just like some type of woo woo, like this is scientific stuff.
Mm,
You know, you can research frequency and vibration and manifesting. It is very scientific and provable. So it's not just like I'm just wishing and all this other stuff. I mean, even if I was, that's scientific as well, but that's another conversation. But there's something to be said about taking accountability and responsibility for your own life, for your own reality. There was a time in my life to where I would blame an outside force,
mm,
you know, or say, oh, it was this person, or oh, it must be a deemed demonic energy, or is, you know what I mean? Like blaming something else instead of taking full accountability, because the fact is, whether you're into this or not, you're doing it anyway. You're manifesting your life anyway. There's
yeah.
no way that you can't do it or you can get out of it. You're doing it based on how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your environment. You know, for me, I've been working on being very intentional with what I feel I deserve. You know, I'm like, okay, I would like live in a bigger place. I want a balcony. I want a beautiful view. I want this to look like this. And so for me, it's like using the power of visualization to
Mhm.
hold that image in my mind's eye and feel good about what I'm seeing, because it's also the feeling. So feeling good about this 2-bedroom balcony, and I could see the hills and the neighborhood is beautiful, and I go walking and I'm safe and this, that, and the other, and all these things that I want to have happen that will happen.
Mhm.
So it's just stepping into that awareness. But like I said, there's something very powerful and liberating about taking responsibility for your own life. Doesn't mean that you can't thank God, praise God, thank Jesus, have your beliefs and all that, because you can have all that too. Like, I'm not saying you have to replace this with something else, but just hone in on the fact that you are that powerful, that you have a say so in some of the things that happen and come into your life. Now, it doesn't take into account experiences you may need to have, or you being at this place at this time, but for the most part, you can focus and think about the type of life you have, know that you deserve it, and just will it in. And I try to do that with as many things as I can. I try to undo old programming, like old
Mhm.
stories of trauma, old stories of something that I can't do anymore, or men are this way. Like that's one I've been working on, is like changing my programming of men. Because I got some stories. So
Mhm.
it's like, you know, like, oh, that doesn't have to be true. The only reason this happened was because of how you were feeling about this, that, and the other. So it's just like me just honing in on my movie
Yeah.
and directing it and producing it and putting in the characters and all that good stuff.
And I think this is so understated in society of being able to be the author of your life and take
Yeah.
ownership for
Yeah.
that. Because even in the Black community, especially, you know, whether you want to participate or not, we are conditioned to be in a constant state of trauma,
Yeah.
whether it's looking back at how our people have been treated over the last couple 100 years in America, and
Yes.
just having to swallow that, and then things popping up here, and then you find out about the, Tulsa, you find out about these things, and it's not
Yes.
even, no one's talking about it, and you see
Mm,
these films that come out, and it's just like
mhm.
slavery after slavery after slavery, and you're conditioned to see things, but then they're saying, oh, nothing to see over here.
Yeah.
And you're kind of relegated to just whispers and murmurs amongst, people you feel comfortable, but meanwhile this trauma is building up inside
Yeah.
of you, and then not even having to deal with the past but the present, what the
Yes.
music that we're consuming, and what's happening with hip hop, and right, I would even call it hip hop right now, just like rap
Yeah.
music, and with
Yes.
Takeoff dying, what I mean, there's thing after thing after thing after thing, and I bring all this up to say the conversation we were having helps in not letting that become your identity, not letting that become what drives you, because now you in the driver's seat, and you having these tools of awareness and reflection, you can now experience that from a point of view where you're observing it and not
Yes.
being a
Yes.
part of it. And I feel like
Mm,
that, like, I went through a not a transfer, I went through a journey in the last couple
mhm.
of years where I did that work, and paid to be in these, Tony Robbins-esque things, and one of the best investments I've ever made in my life, because it didn't fix me, but it gave me the tools so that way, um, I can maneuver through it, and I can stay focused on the mission that I've set out for myself. So yeah, and I remember, and I go back to when we met, I remember us having these sort of conversations, so I feel comfortable, talking to you about this and sharing it
Yeah.
with our audience, because we don't always get to do that. It's always,
I know.
it's about, yes, SoFlo Vegans podcast, but I feel like there's a lifestyle that's a part of it as well.
Yeah.
And if we learn to get out of our own way,
Hmm.
I feel like
Hmm.
that is step one to caring for the animals, and
Man, now this is a show right here. This is a show right here. Oh, you are speaking my language. It's one of the reasons, I have a group, Vegans for Black Lives Matter, and I had to get away from the branding of that group
Mm,
because everybody wanted to interview me on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and wanted to be scolded. And
mhm,
and I'm like, after I got over all of the George Floyd trauma and that experience that it brought out, brought out a lot of oppressed anger in me that I was able to kind of release and look at and exhale and move forward. But I understand that everybody doesn't process like that. Some
mhm,
people, they want to read the haunting headlines, they want to see the brutality, they want to, Black people want to have that rage, white people want to feel that guilt. It's an exchange of energy that I just decided I just didn't want to keep participating in. Doesn't mean that sometimes I won't be like, you know what I mean? Like I won't get a little bit caught up because I'm still a human and I still feel, but I don't want to be defined by that. I'm
mhm,
not defining myself as oppressed. I'm not defining myself as a minority. I'm not defining myself as all these other low frequency words that create triggers all the time. And triggers, you know what people's triggers are, you can control them,
mhm,
and what you were saying, like with Black people, like that is the one thing, like we have to work on our triggers. It is not anybody else's responsibility to not say that. You can't say that. Like people can say what they want. Now, doesn't mean that you don't want to box them when they do it, or whatever, but you can't keep giving that control to the other. You have to take responsibility for it and work on your triggers so that you're not controlled every time the media decides it needs a little boost in ratings or they want to divert our attention to something else. Like, you got to take, that's why it's so important to take responsibility for your life and for how you feel and for how you perceive the world and for how you show up. Doesn't mean it's a one time you take the pill and
mhm,
you're all of a sudden you know, 100% of your brain is activated and
You're in the matrix. You're you're unplugging people, the things from the back of their heads.
I'm telling you exactly. You should unplug people. Oh, that was good. I'm gonna have to. You may hear me say that again. I'm like, just unplug them. Just. But yeah, it doesn't mean like it's a one time. Like it's a constant. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And it's levels. You level up. You get to one level, and you get there, and you fill it out, and then you kind of maybe somewhat master it, and then you go to the next, and you just keep working on and keep working on your stuff.
And what I will even say to that too is, and just speaking from my personal journey, is, what happens is it allows me to transform like to the ultimate version of myself that already exists, that had already happened, that already did what he's supposed to do. But I'm working my way towards that. And for me, part of, the meaning of life is to enjoy the ride, is to enjoy the process, the ups and the downs, learning from it and things of that nature. But even as I kind of level up, the challenges become greater. You know what I mean? So, and even if you want to talk about from a spirituality standpoint, the more light that you gather and you create for yourself attracts an even greater amount of darkness. Because I feel like the world, there's a polarity where, for things to be equal, for there to be an equilibrium, that there has to be an equal level of darkness and light. And I feel like as human beings, part of that transformation that we get to go through is to be the neutral point between the light and the dark, or the negative and the positive, so that way we remain unbothered regardless of the situation. Then with a focus and with a mission or purpose, which is the other piece that I like to talk about, is now you're not driven by the elements that are around you, kind of what you were talking about. You're focused on what your mission is. My mission is to build communities that are economically sustainable and viable, because I see too many people with big hearts not able to fulfill their dreams and their missions because they don't know how to run a successful business, and no one's going to do it for you. So, being able to create that model, that's what drives me. And SoFlo Vegans might be it. This might be it. I might work with it. So I think finding and it might be somebody just wanting to be there for their family, provide for their family, make sure that they're set up for the future, and however that looks. So, I think the combination of those two things are important. And, I applaud you for what you're doing. And I'm sure you're setting an example. Hopefully you're setting an example for other people around the country who can do that, because I feel it's needed, not just feeding people, but feeding them healthy foods that are going to keep them from going to the hospital. Because that's a whole other conversation, in terms of like what's really happening there. And I feel like going plant-based, whole food, plant-based, vegan, whatever you want to call it, is a treat for yourself. It's self-care.
Yes. Oh, that's good. It is self-care, because when I went vegetarian, even though I was still indulging in dairy, there was such a huge difference in how my body responded and how I felt. I used to get severe menstrual cycles. And when I did the Daniel's fast, I didn't even have a pain. My cycle would last sometimes for 10 days. It was gone in 2. I went from 10 to 2, not even having a flutter of pain. And I remember I would be so emotional and moody. And I remember I felt pleasant and euphoric. And I was like, what? Like I was like, it must be because I was eating meat all these years. And so, yeah, it definitely, you benefit. The planet benefits. It's a win-win, regardless of why you're doing it. It's a huge win-win for everybody.
And I think, kind of as we start to wind the podcast down, I want to talk about just our personal experiences going vegan and transitioning. I feel that testimonial is helpful for people who may just started, must have gotten started, or are not sure about getting started. Like for me, for example, before I went vegan, I was getting shots every week for allergies. And, you know,
Mhm.
and it wasn't really helping. It
Every
was getting
week?
every single week because I was constantly congested. I did a test and I was allergic to like 40 out of like 39 out of the 40 things on there. So,
Wow.
and when I went vegan, it's like you realize like all of this stuff is contribute. It's like a lot of these things are not supposed to be in your body.
I know.
We're not this. It's like funny, especially in the Black community. It's like I'm lactose intolerant. No, you're not supposed to be drinking the milk from of a mother cow.
Right, because you're not a baby cow.
You know what I mean? It's not you're lactose intolerant, and you know it's your body being finely tuned to let you know don't put this in me. And the ones who can drink milk don't have that component in their body. So so little things like that, and just thinking of as you really start breaking down what are these things that we're eating, you know, eggs, you know, what an actual egg is,
I
you
know.
don't have to take my word for it, Google it. You know what I mean? And milk, the things that are in there, like the meat having, but
The pus, the blood, all
and
that.
and I'm not even coming from a perspective that these are living sentient beings. I'm just coming from the perspective of
Yes.
it's disgusting.
Yes.
And I had this conversation yesterday. It's like even the meat that you're eating, right? Like I challenge anybody out there to go a whole week if you eat meat without seasoning your meat, not even salt. Now then tell me that you can't live without meat. What you can't live without are the plants that you put on the meat in the form of seasoning.
Mm-hmm.
You find something with the right texture. Now
Mm-hmm.
find the right texture. I mean, if you don't want
Preach.
to go with a mushroom and you want to go with even an imitation meat, to
Mm-hmm.
each his own. But I also love that the science is catching up. They're
Yes.
getting really good at creating the texture, the
Yes.
mouth feel that a lot of these meats have. And that comes from investments for people. And a lot of investments are coming from people who aren't vegan, who want to see, who are coming at it from maybe from an environmental aspect where they know it's not sustainable long term and they want to be at the front of the line when it comes to having a monopoly on these products that are going to hit the shelf. Hey, it may not be the way I go about it, but I feel like the end result is that you're going to see
Mm-hmm.
less and less need for people to even have meat. And so
Yeah.
yeah, so like, what are your thoughts on the future, of where this movement is going, and kind of maybe what your role might look in that?
Well, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like in my lifetime that we are going to be majority vegan. I just feel. I mean, it could be on my deathbed, but I do feel like I'll be alive to see it because of how rapidly the progress is going. I know some people don't think it's going fast enough because they want animals to be liberated like yesterday, and I get it. But I went vegan in 2016. I mean, you were just excited to have like if somebody came out with some cheese, it could be crap. You were just like, oh, there's a new cheese out there, because you were just excited for anything vegan. Like it wasn't hard to impress.
Mhm.
Now there's so many products and so much, like you said, the technology is catching up. The cheeses, the Goudas and all that stuff are absolutely amazing. The meats are, coming as close as they possibly can to the animal type texture. So I do think that there's going to be huge leaps of transition on this planet when it comes to I think they're doing it anyway. They're because one is not sustainable to the planet,
Mhm.
and no matter how slow they act on it, they know time is running out. They know these facts. They just don't want to say it, but they know that we can't continue on this trajectory or it's going to be very harmful for the planet and its inhabitants, including the people that are making these crazy decisions. So I do feel like there's going to be a huge shift at some point to where a lot of the meat will be replaced with animal proteins, whether people are making the decision consciously or not. I think it's going to happen on a consumerism level and on a environmental level. So I do feel very optimistic, not just spiritually, but I also think for the safety of the planet is going to happen.
And I think even with like cultured meats and, you know,
Yes.
creating it from
Yes.
and what if you're not familiar with the term
Cells.
cultured meat, it's they're taking cells from actual animals and they're recreating the meat, the actual meat in the lab. Now, of course, people are going to be like, well, I don't want anything that's manufactured or processed and things of that nature.
But you're doing it anyway. You're eating manufactured and processed animal anyway.
And I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years from now, they just don't even tell you that's what it is. They're just putting it. It's like, oh wait, my meat's like 50% less now. Oh, awesome! I'm happy.
But you know that's what they do on this planet. They experiment on people. They wait. They don't tell the truth. So yeah, they're probably doing it already.
Yeah. And you know what? The sad reality is they're probably going to start in the black and the disenfranchised communities first to see.
Yep.
Okay, oh, they're not dropping dead. All right, let's roll it out. I say that in jest. Don't cancel me. Allegedly. So, like I said, we're winding down the podcast now, and we covered a lot of amazing things that you're working on. But just for our audience, let us know kind of what it is that you are, you know, most excited about right now, how they can support, and anything else that we might not have touched on.
So the food bank, if you're in Los Angeles watching, it's every third week of the month, every third Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday is for sorting and packing if you want to come and volunteer. And the third Thursday is we actually do the food bank distribution. For December, because the holidays, it's going to be on the second week of December. So if you're interested in volunteering, or even if you're interested in just coming to get some items, I can set some stuff aside for you. You can text us at 626-88-GO-VEG, GOVEG, or you can email me at Gwenna, GWENNA, at vegansofla.com. But yeah, the food bank is my pride and joy right now. We serve about in one day at that location, about 325 people in a 2-hour period. The line is usually wrapped around the corner before we even get started. So the need is real. We have fresh produce, fruits, grains, lentils, rice, beans, anything you can think of. Like, we have it for the most part. And then we usually get like some type of donation of like a plant-based meat, you know, alternative that people can take home with them.
Mm-hmm. And thank you so much for being on the show. And once again, part of our tradition, the last segment that we have for the podcast is From the Heart. And we invite our guests to drop from the head space to the heart space and just to share a message directly with our audience. So once you're finished, that will be the end of the show. So if you're listening right now, be sure to go to soulflowvegans.com/podcast to see this episode as well as other episodes, show notes, links to find out how you can support a food bank, and so much more. And you can also download our app on Android and iPhone. Just search SoulFlow Vegans, and you can listen to this podcast on there as well. So thank you, Gwenna, so much for being on the show, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, what I would like to leave everybody with is something I like to talk about is planetary unity. I definitely believe that planetary unity is possible in this lifetime. Now, when I say planetary unity, I don't mean that we all have to be in love with each other, hold hands, and skip down the yellow brick road, even though that would be absolutely amazing too. And I would like to see that in my lifetime. However, planetary unity means coming together for the greater good of your community, of your family, of the human race, of, you know, whatever you want to come together for. You can still dislike each other if that's what you want to do. You don't have to agree with each other, but you can come together as people to solve a certain issue, to come together for a certain cause. So start thinking in terms of planetary unity, but that also first starts within yourself. So you have to first have unity within your own heart, which means forgiving yourself, taking a rest, doing joyful things, living out a dream, visualizing, just taking good care of yourself and putting yourself first and loving on yourself. And again, it doesn't mean you take the pill and it's done in one shot. It's a constant process. I'm constantly working on loving myself more and more. And every time I think I love myself, I'm like, oh, there's more I need to love. There's more I need to let go of. There's more I need to take into consideration. So think along terms of planetary unity and planetary healing, because we are right now creating a new world. Like, it's not going to happen. It's happening right now. And everyone has to participate. So think of the type of world that you want to live in: a world of peace, no wars, a world of equality, liberation, joy, safety, love, compassion. Visualize what that looks like, how that feels. And that's the first step. Is thinking about it, feeling it, and knowing that it's going to happen. And if enough of us continue to do that on a regular basis, we speed this thing up. We're going to do it anyway. At the end, the spoiler alert is we got this. But in the meantime, let's speed it up. So planetary unity shall always be the goal. Thank you.
Yeah, I really had a good time speaking with you. You know, like I definitely love speaking into the whole spirituality, law of attraction, that sort of realm, because I feel like it could help so many people out.
Yes,
Just get through life. And I wish I would have mentioned more about this. Just the connection even between that spirituality kind of practice and the religion. Like, I've been getting more into religion and God, and kind of, because I want to speak to all people. I don't want to just be
Yes,
like, you're this. And it's literally the same thing. Like, if
it
you look
is.
at all of the different religions, even from the point of prayer versus meditation versus
Yes,
mindfulness versus God being the universe, being
yes,
abundant, you
yes,
know, and one of the things I like about religion is that it takes a little bit of, you know, and the spirituality can be very centered on everything is you, the universe is within you, God is within you. This, I think it helps. It's almost like a transitionary, like transition food. It helps in being able to look at some other
yes,
entity and be
yes,
like, okay, give me guidance. And I feel
yes,
like, as a matter of fact, I feel like that's kind of what is missing a little bit in the spirituality world, where no matter if you have somebody in your life, you don't have somebody in your life, you could always look to God and be like, I
mm.
have you. You know what I mean? And
And there's nothing wrong with that. And
yeah.
it's so funny that you said it, because I had to give myself permission to do that, because there were times, for the most part, I'm like, okay, God is within. I be talking to my higher self. Then there's some moments I'm like, no, I'm gonna need to just be a bystander here and talk to somebody
Yeah.
and bring my God back, for the time that I needed or whatever it is, because I did about with Christianity, I did Catholicism, I did Buddhism, I did mysticism. Like, I was trying to find the answer. And but in my searches, I realized that they, like you said, they all have something in common.
Yeah.
And but some of them just focus it on a particular deity or individual and put that, and it's all okay.
Yeah.
It's all okay.
That this gets to be a panel conversation that we have on a future episode, where it's all we're talking about, because I feel like that falls in the realm of taking yourself on, watching what you put in your body. And I feel like there's room in this community for the talks to go in that direction, and not always just be about the activism and things of that nature,
Yes.
because part of that activism is you know, taking care of yourself, both physically and mentally.